The Dairese Podcast.
Reinholdt launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico wins it.
Kenny Thomas blocks. Gibson hustling down. He has some room. And he gets it. Oh, long three. He got it.
Oh, my goodness. Kendall Williams from 35 feet. For the win. Snell. Got it. He got it. Wow. With 1.8 seconds remaining.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions. Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air, but New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State, and the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament.
That was a great move right there. Look like
Welcome back to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast. Just queuing it up with some old highlights. Even though I didn't play, those were some fun teams to watch. My name is Ryan Tamori. As always, I'm joined by Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how are you doing?
Doing great, Ryan. Anxious. We've got a great guest today, so anxious to be on.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to this guy. Ed, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that you're the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs and a Lobo fan since 1970.
Yes, sir. That's okay, Ryan. That's something I wear proudly. So, yeah, I appreciate that.
Except for that shirt you're wearing. All right, our next guest is a former guard for the UNM men's basketball team from 2007 to 2011. During his career here, he averaged 10 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists. I didn't realize this. He also shot 45% from the field. In 2009, 2010, he helped head coach Steve Alford and company go 30-5 overall and win an outright Mountain West Conference regular season championship. His senior year, he averaged over 14 points and 5 assists per game. He's back in Albuquerque with Brandon Mason at the ABC Basketball Academy. I hope I got that right. He's a player. Perfect. He's player development. He's a player developer there, and the ABC Prep Hoops post grad coach. Dude, I stole that off your Twitter, so my bad. His name is Dairese Gary. Dairese, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Back in the ABQ, so, happy about that.
Well, we're happy to have you back. We're happy to have you on this show. And Happy New Year, by the way. You're now coaching there at ABC Prep. You're with Brandon Mason. How did that all come about, and how is it going for you?
Well, he's been doing this for a few years now, and he's been trying to get me back. And everything just lined up last summer for me and my family to make moves to come back. So just finally decided to make the move and come back. My wife's from here too, so it was a kind of a no-brainer to get back here. She can get with her family and me get with Brandon and help him build on this prep and travel basketball stuff. So, it's all working out and it's fun.
Dairese, you're coaching and offering individual training now. You had a great role with New Mexico. You played some excellent players when you were here as the point guard. Break down your playing style and the role you played on those talented Lobo squads. How did your role? It's a changing roster. I looked at the roster. I remembered that. You played with Tony Danders. We'll get into some of the players you played with. But it's a changing roster from when you were a freshman to when you were a senior. Talk about how your role evolved over the years and playing with UNM and Steve Alford.
I guess you can say just by players and by me maturing. My freshman year, just coming into college, as any freshman, it was a big change coming from high school. So I wasn't asked to do too much. I always been a pretty good defender, so I would guard a lot of the best, guards or wings, depending on how tall they were. So that was kind of my role throughout college, just guarding each best player. And then as I matured and got older, I was asked to do more of, scoring and handling the ball and being more of a decision maker or like a coach on the floor. So, as you mature and, coach starts to trust you more, he gives you a little more leash. So I guess my junior and senior year, I could say he kind of let me go and, be that coach on the floor and a leader on the floor and just doing whatever my team needed at the time. If it was scoring, if it was defense, if it was charging, diving on the floor, I mean, whatever it took to win, I was willing to do it.
Dairese and Steve Alford, a hard charging coach, man. When you get his trust, you've earned it. Because I remember I was saying this yesterday or a couple of days ago when he used to really undress JR, man, on the bench. He did. He'd get on right, and he'd put him back in. But I think he made
and Ferris, dude. Ferris has got the best stories.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've got your own. We're going to ask you a couple. But when you earn trust, of course, Coach Alford, a shooting guard with Bob Knight, not a point guard, but he knows about all the positions on the floor. Also playing for his dad, won a gold medal. The guy had swag, man. He comes in here right away with swag, no question about it. But I had to think about the trust you had to earn with him. Dairese, I saw your daughter. You have a daughter that's drawing some attention. I saw the post work, man. Post time. Getting her own rebounds, strong underneath, getting that second jump that's hard to do. She carves out space. I only saw a little bit last night online, and that was enough. Tell us about her.
She's gonna be pretty good. She's only 13 right now. She's about 6 foot, wears a size 13 shoe. So I think she still has some growing to do in there. But just her touch and the way she can move right now, and the size that she's at, she's gonna be pretty good. And I mean, we're in the gym every day and we're working. I train her, but I don't coach her. I let her go off and let other people coach her because she gets enough of me during training. So hopefully here in the next few years, you'll hear a lot about her.
It's kind of funny, Dairese. You're the same person that's telling her to clean her room, right? So sometimes those coaching tips, I went through that with my own son and my nephew. My brother went through that with my nephew. He would tell me to talk to my nephew, who was a very good player, because sometimes he wouldn't listen to my brother. My son wouldn't listen to me. And sometimes your daughter lives with you and she hears your voice, and it's good because you've got guys like Jay Hill, B. Mace. You've got guys, other voices on that staff that can definitely teach her some other things. Not that you can't, but sometimes that as a player that's been around a long time, it doesn't hurt to hear other voices. Dairese, you were former UNM head coach Steve Alford's first recruit signee. What was going through your head when you heard about Albuquerque and the Pit? What was your ultimate deciding factor in choosing to come here?
At the time, I was a little confused. Growing up, especially from the Midwest, my dream was always to play in the Big Ten. And I think my game kind of formed around being a Big Ten point guard. Like you said, coaching them been recruiting me and knowing me since probably around the 8th grade. So that bond that we built was very strong. And when he told me he was leaving, of course, I was hurt because I was so excited to go to Iowa. And when he told me he was leaving and going to a Messer, I was like, man, what and where is that? I didn't know anything about it. But he just said, trust me. He reassured me that he got me. So I talked to my parents and my brothers, and they was like, man, there's nothing going for you here. You worked your butt off. You built that relationship with, Coach Alford and Coach Neal. It was like, just trust them. And that's what I did and headed out here and had a pretty good career.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yes, sir.
You talk about, Big Ten basketball. Like, I grew up, my roots are New Jersey. Dad, there we go. That's how we do it. I went and saw a game in the RAC against Indiana, of all teams, Indiana, like 4 or 5 years ago. And I just like the atmosphere. Obviously, Rutgers been good. But when I think of Big Ten, and I'm sure you're the same way, I don't think of Rutgers in the Big Ten. And then Indiana came in and smoked RU. But that's a difference. That's not here nor there. I don't even know where the hell I was going with that. But I guess where I was going with that is because you got to play in the Pit. What kind of atmosphere was it like? I mean, I always think to that 2009, 2010 team. We've talked to Roe about it. I've talked to Daniel Ferris about it, and I think JR, but that specific year, you guys, I mean, I couldn't hear myself think when I was at the paper, but that's two, Ed. I mentioned New Jersey and the Daily Lobo. Anyway, I'm getting way too old for this shit. But anyway, like, what was it like playing in the Pit? And did you ever imagine the atmosphere being that chaotic?
It was crazy, man. Like words can't really explain how it was playing there. You know, coming from Indiana, Indiana is a basketball state. I mean, that's what I tell everybody. When I played in high school, went to the same high school as Sean Kemp. My freshman and sophomore year, I played with my brother, and we pretty much sold out every game. And I was like, man, it can't get no better than this until I got to the pit. And it blew that out of the water, man. The support of the fans, man, how loud they got, how they just rallied behind us. You know, even, you know, when we needed that extra push, man, that fan base and seeing the other team run up the ramp and they're struggling running up the ramp and we're just sprinting up it, man, it's nothing like it.
I did not know that you went to the same high school as Sean Kemp. There is another one, Ed. At least I'm showing my age because, man, dude, those Sonic.
Imagine this though, Dairese. You know, Ryan also always talks about how old he is. I'm 61, man, so he must think I'm ancient. That's okay though. That's okay. Well, one quick comment.
Oh, my mom's ancient. My mom's.
Yeah, that's okay, man. You know, there's a lot of experience that comes with being ancient, man. I'll take that. I'm still on this earth, thank God. I'm still here. One more thing, Dairese. I did want to say this. You mentioned the pit. Now, former Lobo great Greg Brown mentioned he thought the pit was worth 10 points before the tip. That's how he thought how powerful the pit was.
Oh, 100%, man. When regardless of what rank you are or, you know, how the season's going, when you come into the pit, you know you're in for a fight. I mean, it's rare that any team can come to the pit and just, you know, just go crazy. Just because the environment it is, especially teams that come in and they hit that altitude and like it's defeating when you see a team just up and down, running up and down, or halftime they're sprinting up the ramp and you're barely making it. It's a different feeling.
We already mentioned Alford, but he's seen to kind of grow as one of the, you know, great coach in college basketball in the country. But I don't know if you kind of touched on it, but what was it like playing for him? But what do you emulate from what you learned from him coaching now that you're talking to, you know, kids and helping them develop and learn to love the game of basketball?
I think one of the things that I can relate to with Coach is he was a player and he was good. So being a player's coach is different from a coach that, you know, that's still good, but just, you know, studied or, you know, just eventually um, got into that position. A lot of players can relate to a coach that's played the game before, that's went through the same situations or, you know, the ordeals that they went to. Um, and, you know, coach he used to get out there and let you know, like, I'll shoot you, I can outsmart you. Like, he would get out there and let you know that, which gain respect also. And I still get out there when a couple of our players, you know, need their hair bust. I get out there and let them know, like, I still can do this. Like, I did this for a long time, which that gains respect. And I think the players can relate more and listen to you more. And, you know, he taught me that. Also, you know, being that hard nosed coach, you know, not taking shit and holding players accountable. I remember he told me one thing, like the work that the coaching staff puts in for preparation for other teams allow us to be prepared. And I think, you know, with Brandon, you know, being a college coach and some of the other coaches on our staff, we do go through a lot with practices and, you know, practice plans and skill work, trying to prepare these kids to, you know, go to that next level. So I also took that from Coach Alford and Coach Neal, just the way they prepared and got us ready for each game and each season.
You know, Ed and I on this podcast and the other people we've had on, and not that I played, you know, growing up here, I grew up, which is an oddity. I love college basketball, but I love college football. So I was more inept to going to college, going to see the UNM football team, even in the late 80s and early 90s when they weren't good, which they've never really been good. But when your guys' 2009, 2010 team, and Ed mentions all the time, 30-5 seasons don't grow on trees. You guys finished, I think, 8th in the AP poll. Tell us about that team. And you got a win over Montana in the first round, and then I think it was Isaiah Thomas and God, who was the other guy? Yeah,
Poindexter.
Quincy Pondexter. But and I didn't mean to bring that up, and I'm sure it irritates a lot of the Lobo fans. But you got to win. But talk about that season and how special you were. And I asked Roe about it over the summer, and he was like, "Man, I thank Darrington all the time for blocking that shot at the end in Provo." But just talk about that team and what you take away from that season.
I tell Roe all the time, I helped Darrington block that shot. I was the first swipe, and then he came behind, by the way. But no, it was special, man. Like, even in the summer, like when we knew Darrington was coming, I knew him from AAU, and I've seen him a few times. So I mean, I know he could play, but we didn't know what he was gonna bring, what attitude he was gonna bring. You know, was he gonna come and buy in? What, so we didn't know. But when that summer came, and we had our bumps in the road that summer, when we had a player leave that probably could have helped us out even more. But we just all gelled together, man, and like the work that we put in, it was night in, night out. We were in the gym and we were grinding. I mean, we were going against each other. We were battling. And I think that's what brought us to having that great season, just how we competed in workouts, competed in practice. We competed in the weight room. I mean, anything you can think of, like, we competed at it. And I think that bond that we built forced us to have, that 30-5 season. Even with like the bond that me, Roe, and Darrington have right now, like we still have that same bond that we had all those years ago on that team. So I mean, it was just something special that kind of puzzled together.
I mean, it was, you guys were so much fun to watch. I'm just going to say that, Ed, my bad.
No, that's okay. I was just thinking of back when you played, Dairese, and you iron sharpens iron, right? They say that all the time. So you mentioned the competition. Coach Alford, I have to laugh because, you're saying he can go out there and still bust you all, and he did, right? I gave a guy a lot of screens for Coach Knight, winning the national championship with Syracuse. Not a creator of his own shot at all, but could shoot, catch and shoot. Free throws, 88%, 86%, around there. So, again, when I say that he had the swag coming in here, gold medal, national championship, played for his dad, played for Bob Knight, he's the man. I don't know that we can say that any Lobo coach, and I've been a fan since 70, Bob King, a long time ago, came into this situation. Norm Ellenberger, a hell of a coach. But Coach Alford had more swag than any Lobo coach, basketball coach that we've ever seen by far. And so when he's saying stuff, you better buy in. You better buy in, or there's the ramp or whatever. Get out. So, and you mentioned that one player that left during the summer. He could have helped. I don't remember his name, but I've heard, though, he wasn't buying in. He didn't want to do what was asked of him. He wanted to do his own thing. That's why he was asked to leave. That's what I remember hearing. Dairese, you played with some great Lobo teammates. We mentioned some of them: Tony Dandridge, Daniel Ferris, Ramon Martinez, Darrington Hobson, J.R. Giddings, Chad Topper. Tell us a little bit about some of those UNM teams you did play on. You went through different players for 4 years. We just mentioned a couple of them. Talk about some of those teams and players you played with.
I mean, like, of course, playing with JR. I mean, the three NBA players I played with: JR, Darrington, Tony Snell. I mean, there's just talent that is not teachable. You know what I'm saying? You can't teach a 6'6", 6'8" frame that can handle the ball, that can move, that can shoot, and do all those things. So to get to play with them and be able to know, like, okay, he likes the ball in this spot, or I know when he's curling around this place, if I drive, he's going to be here, and just know if I can get them the ball, what they can do with it. It's just, I mean, it made it easy for me, and it made it fun, being out there with them, being able to throw oops from half court and they go out and catch it and dunk it. Like, it's unreal. I mean, and a lot of players don't get to play with guys like that. Like Tony Dandridge, touch the top of the backboard. Like, I literally could throw the ball anywhere and I knew he was going to go catch it, regardless if it was a good pass, bad pass. If I kicked the ball towards the rim, I knew he was going to go catch it. Like Chad Topper, my favorite thing to do with him was with a handoff where I would go hand it off and whoever was in front of him, I'd just clear him out. And he would, I know it's going in. If he gets a look at the basket, it's going in. Same thing with Rowe. I think that 30 and 5 team that people don't talk about is like we kind of started playing the small ball first before it got popular. With Rowe being at the 4 and seeing him battle his butt off against 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guys when he's playing defense, and then on the offensive end, he just, ripping them a new one. Ball screen, pick and pops with him. We would put him in triangle, make those big guys chase him around. Like, there's so many memories of those teams and how hard we played and just the game plan we would have, and just see those guys go out and just execute at a high level, man. It's unreal, man. I played with some ballers, man.
Hey, you know what? You were one of them too, man. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, those were some teams, and I think sometimes the team takes on the personality of its head coach, and I think you did take on the personality of Steve Alford. He wasn't going to take no crap from anyone at all. So I think the team, I can just see that competing in everything, shooting drills, weight lifting. You want to be the best, right? So and that all comes from the head man himself, who could show you, I got a ring, I won one. So I think that had a lot to do with it. I have to laugh because I've been part of teams I've coached, and you see the competition. I love it, right? That's the only way we get better. And you probably do that with your daughter. Hey, this girl here is better than you. Maybe she's not. Poke her a little bit. Make her, right? How the competitive juices get going. The other player we want to ask you, and Ryan mentioned that. I've been a Lobo fan since '70, so I remember when the Lobos were in the WAC with Arizona, Arizona State, BYU, Utah. We missed the rivalry with UTEP. You should have seen the games they had with UTEP back here in the day. You wouldn't have believed it, man. You wouldn't have believed it. But you had a chance to play a Jimmer Fredette, and the guy was incredible, scorer extraordinaire. You got to send doubles. You got to make sure your pick and roll coverage is intact. You've got to communicate on defense. Describe what it was like going head to head with him.
He's probably one of the hardest people I've ever had to guard. And, I've guarded some people before, and, I took it as a privilege that coach, it's like, this is your matchup. This is what you have to worry about. Like, worry about whatever. He was like, you're not going to stop him, but just make it hell for him the whole night. I can remember one game in the pit, like me and Fredette was at half court leaning on each other because we were so tired. We was just like I'm gonna hold you up, you hold me up. When the ball, gets thrown back in, like, we gotta go. So we had those battles where I'm like, man, I'm in his face, I'm grabbing his jersey, I'm chasing him, I'm bumping him, doing everything I know possible, and then he was still coming over and hit a shot. I'd be like, come on, man, I just did everything to this guy, and he still made a shot. So he was, still to this day, he's still playing and giving people buckets, but that's probably one of my toughest matchups that I've ever had. It was fun too. I think I came out on top though. I think I got the most wins out of the rivalry out of me and him, but that guy was a freaking monster.
Oh yeah, he really was.
And the Knicks didn't take him. I was pissed. He was from he was from upstate New York, Ed.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I just wanted to say one thing. Dairese, between you guys were good, and then San Diego State was good, and then BYU was good, and I think Utah was good in there. But I had the privilege of interviewing these guys after the game, and it has nothing to do with talking to them. But I remember when I met Jimmer Fredette, it was up the ramp, and they brought him out so we could, us media members could talk to him. And I remember looking at him, and you've met me. I'm a skinny little shit. I'm a small dude. I poke fun of myself all the time. AJ Hardiman did give me my rap name, which is Little Croissant. So my debut album dropped 10 years ago. I forgot what Mike and I named it, but my rap name is Little Croissant. So I credit AJ Hardiman for that. But I remember meeting Jimmer. The point with that, and I looked at him, and I'm a straight male. I have to preface this, but I was like his upper body, I was like, damn, dude, his bicep was bigger than my legs. And then I looked at his legs and they were like chicken legs. And I was like, they were like my legs. And I was like, what the hell? But I will never forget shaking Kawhi Leonard's hand
Oh my God.
after
The claw,
game.
right?
Yeah, the claw. And I remember shaking his hand and I was like, and then obviously he went on to do what he did. I was like, oh my God. And I'm just going to interject. And just because that league that back then was so much fun to watch. What was playing against, I remember DJ Gay, Malcolm Thomas, and I had said, just my opinion, that 2010, 2011 team, like out of all the sporting events I've been to and what I've done and what I've seen, I was like, damn, that maybe that team that they lost to Kemba Walker and UConn, I thought, man, that might have been the greatest team assembled that I had just seen in person. But how good were those San Diego State teams?
Oh my God, man. Like I think, and me and it's crazy. Me and Butter was just talking about this last week. Out of all the teams that we ran into, San Diego State and Washington was probably the two teams that we had problems matching up with. Like when you think about San Diego State and you think about their starters, I think DJ Gay was my height. And then everybody else, where you had Malcolm Thomas, you had Billy White, you had Kawhi, you had who was the other guy? It was one, maybe Spain. It was one more guy. All of them were 6'4" and up. I mean, Malcolm Thomas was 6'10", Billy White was 6'9", Kawhi was 6'5", 6'6". The other guy was like 6'4", like, and all of them were athletes. It wasn't like they were just tall and like stiffs. All of them could run. All of them could jump. All of them were long. Like it was hard to match up with them. I mean, not just us, but anybody they played against. They hit the boards so hard that, I mean, I think in practice the only thing we worked on for a week was rebounding drills. Trying to work on keeping them off the glass, and then you had Coach Fisher that, I mean, just was a genius when it just put them in the right space and in the right position. So, let them go be themselves and do their things, man. It's just, man, they were a nightmare. I used to hate, I'm like, oh, here we got to play these dudes again.
Ed, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Go ahead.
Oh no, that was I think that was the last one I had. The question I had, I think.
I've got some more here. We'll continue these. I purposely gave Ed this question, but if you hadn't suffered the torn ACL injury, and I think you did in that semifinal game against BYU, if I remember correctly, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but I know that there were a lot of people and national people, pundits, that had thought, you were an NBA talent. Do you think had that injury not happened, that maybe you had seen some time in the NBA? And I know that you played for the Indiana Mad Ants.
Yeah, draft wise, I don't know if I would have got drafted or where I would have got drafted, but I feel that I definitely could have played my way on someone's team if I didn't get drafted. I'm not gonna sit here and say like I thought I was this big NBA star, which I mean I definitely think I was good enough to play. I mean, there was a lot of guys that went to the league that were on, teams that I played on or people that I played against that, I mean, I did really well. Um, I definitely think I could have went and been a guard on somebody's team that could have been, a defender or, just that floor general that, I could have went a couple years and played and maybe floated around or something. But God dang, knee injury. Uh, definitely made it different situation for me.
I didn't mean to rehash a bad nightmare. We were just concerned. I would, once again, I'm like the token Knicks fan. I would have taken you on the Knicks back then.
I would have loved to go to the Knicks.
I would have went and saw. I've seen games in the Garden. I would have went to see you play. I think a big stink has been, especially with Steve Alford, is you were from Elkhart, Indiana. You mentioned Indiana is a huge basketball state. You don't even have to talk about that, but you're from there. You live here now. You've got a history in New Mexico. Can you compare the passion between, how much both states love their basketball?
Oh man, it's very close, man. I've been to a few IU games, and even just around where I'm from the Indianapolis area, like basketball is huge in Indiana. I mean, that's a lot of a lot of way kids get their way out of Indiana. It's a lot of ways that opportunities that are made for kids, and I see that a lot out here. That basketball is huge in that sense. It's a way out for kids. It's an outlet for kids. Um, and just the fan base, man. Even when IU wasn't good, I mean, they're still fans and they're selling out, and um, people are still going and supporting their team. And it's the same way with the Lobos. You know, even when we had down years, you know, it's still people in the crowd. It's still fans supporting them. So there's definitely a similarity between the two, basketball wise out here.
I remember that you were a running back in high school, and a lot of people, I think, compared your game to the way you played point guard to being a running back. I mean, what kind of running back were you, and did you emulate your running back game after anybody that you liked watching football wise?
Um, my favorite player is Terrell Davis. That's my favorite player, football player of all time. But I mean, I was not a juke guy. I was get the ball, and if you're in front of me, I'm gonna try to split your helmet. That was my. I guess you can call me a power back. I had one cutback, and I would get up the field. I mean, I had pretty good speed for my size, but if you got in the way, man, it was like chicken. But I'm not turning. I'm head down, and I'm trying to get my yards. But
I would have never guessed that watching you play point guard. I just
nah, I love football too. It's actually when I played in high school, I played my first. I think I played my first 2 years. My second year, I might have separated my shoulder, and then, of course, there was he couldn't play anymore because of basketball. So I didn't play, and then my senior year, they in the middle of the season, the coach let me back on the team. Um, but it was a rule. I couldn't play offense. I can only play defense. So I played strong safety my senior year. My team went to state, but I definitely was one of those people when you go up in the air, you're gonna be in trouble.
no,
You know,
that's awesome. That's awesome. And I haven't told this story real quick because
anyway,
I'm a skinny small guy. My mom swore to God she thought she was going to give birth to an offensive lineman. So here I am.
you know, Dairese, you mentioned power as a football player. Now I'm going to mention some point guards of the past, and you're up there with them. Petey Gibson, Phil Smith, Kelvin Scarborough, Greg Brown, Daryl McGee. Your name belongs up there with all of them. I played some ball with Petey and Phil and Kelvin, and you know, Kelvin, God rest his soul. I know you knew him. You know what? That was a huge loss, not only to the basketball community, but to people. I love that guy because not only did he care about you as a person, he cared about kids. I remember we started a podcast together about 3 years ago, and his thing, we talked for an hour. You know, I talked to basketball people for hours, and Kelvin would always say, Ed, we got to help these kids with their ACT, man. You know, so he cared about people, man. You know, he really did. A huge loss, but I'm sure he was in your ear talking to you when you played here. I know he was. End-to-end speed, different than you. Now, Petey and Phil, well, Petey, man, Petey was a low to the ground guy. I don't know if you ever met, I'm sure you did meet Coach Gibson. Coach Gibson was an incredible player too, you know, even back in the day. Phil Smith, I know you know Phil, New York point guard, had some similar style to you, maybe not as strong, but New York style. You know, penetrate, score, and the personnel that he played with did not match up to his talent. Nothing against, you know, after Lobo Gate, and then he played with Coach Colson's guys who didn't match his end-to-end speed and up-tempo game. So when I look at your game as compared to those, and then, of course, Greg Brown, you remember Greg, Daryl McGee's a little bit before your time, more of a distributor, but you definitely have your place in Lobo history as one of the top Lobo point guards for sure. And I've seen a lot of them, man.
And I appreciate that. No, it's an honor, you know, to be putting there with those guys, man. And you talk about Scarborough, that was my dude, man. Rest in peace, man. He definitely looked out for, you know, not only in the community but us as Lobo players. You know, when some graduated and, didn't know what to do or didn't have a plan at the time, man, he definitely stepped in and helped them out and, gave them advice and direction. So yeah, no, that lineup though, it's a big time to be a part of it.
Oh, you know what? You belong there, man. Like I said, I just talked to Coach Gibson about 2 weeks ago, and Coach Gibson is a man. Yeah, I got to tell you this story. Remember when he played in the pit of 68, 69, 70, and there's 14,000, no mezzanine. I interviewed him last year, and I asked him, hey, Coach, when you played, was it that loud? In 14,000, right? He said the referees would have to shake their shirts to tell them a call had been made. So even back then, when Coach Gibson played, and Coach Gibson, by the way, his grandfather, Josh Gibson of the Negro Baseball Leagues, that's his grandfather, man. I don't know if you knew that. But when I found that out, that's an amazing story to me, And man, Petey was something else. Played some ball with Petey. Mean, man, that guy was tough. So when you talk about in Phil, you mentioned Scarborough. Phil, New York Chip, attitude, brought it all, man. So Greg Brown, you know Coach Brown too. Coach Brown, the step back 30-footers against BYU, legendary. Naismith Player of the Year. So I hate to belabor those points. I think those people need to be reminded of how great those guys were and how great you were as well. That's some esteemed company, Dairese, and you belong there, man, for sure.
Man, I appreciate it, man. Those are some tough names. I definitely, when you talk about that toughness, that was one of the things that I prided myself on, being tough. When I go back and talk to some of these young guys or some of the players that's playing now, I'm like, as a point guard, man, that's one of the biggest things that you have to carry with yourself is that toughness, not getting too low, not getting too high, and being able to lead your team. So, when you talk about that and you talk about those guys and, how they played and the success they had, man, that's one of the things that we all have in common is that toughness that, drove us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every single name that I mentioned there, man, I'm laughing because I played ball with Daryl, with Phil, with Kelvin and Petey, and man, every single one of those guys would fight you in a New York minute, man. They would. So I have to laugh about that. I know, you would too, and not that you're looking for it, but sometimes a point guard has to be that guy. Sorry, Ryan, I didn't mean to go on a tangent.
No. I was going to say, I don't know anything about the X's and O's of basketball. I grew up a Knicks fan, and even though I like Jordan, I watched the Knicks lose to the Bulls every damn year in the 90s. And then I got a new resurgence for love of college basketball when you guys were good, because it was cool to see, everybody at New Mexico, UNM on the national stage. It doesn't matter what my opinion is, because I was in Mike's wedding, for goodness sake, Mike Mades, and I drop his name on this podcast a lot. But I would just to say, because I was just the bumbling drunk sports reporter, but to watch you guys, I just wanted to say this, and I was going to ask you questions about the resurgence of the program under Pitino, but just for me personally, and I don't think people care, man, you guys were so expletive fun to cover and watch. And that 2009, 2010 team, I was like, man, I don't know. I didn't know if they were going to surprise people and go farther in the tournament, but just from a personal, that 1 year was just, you guys were so fun to watch. And then it was like, I think you dropped the first two in Mountain West Conference play, and I was on the East Coast. For the holidays, I was with some family, and then I got back, and then all of a sudden it was just went. And then you guys ripped off 14 in a row, technically 15 in a row in conference. I've probably told you this, and then I saw you over the summer. I just wanted to say, man, you guys were so much fun to cover. And then I was on a flight to Vegas in July, and all this. I didn't say anything to him, but I'm boarding the flight, and I look, and it was Darrington, and I didn't say anything, but I was like, man, I didn't want to fanboy him, because I was like, I just want to be like, man, I love covering and watching that team, and he was conference player of the year. I'm going to shut up, but our last question to you is, because you've spent a lot of time with us, man, and we've really appreciated it. We've tried to make this happen for a while, and I know Eric, my other business partner, was bugging you, but just what you've seen out of this year's team and the resurgence. Obviously a tough loss the other night at Colorado State, but what have you seen that you've liked out of this Lobo team thus far?
I mean, they play hard, man, and I know a lot of the coaching staff personally, and I know that they definitely get them prepared and put them in the right positions. But they have all the puzzle pieces, man. They just have to figure out how to put them together. And Coach Alford always talked about not peaking too early, and I think they're right around the time where they can start climbing to get to that peak. So I mean, they're in a good spot. The Mountain West still is no joke, man. There's still a lot of good teams in the Mountain West. So man, I would just tell them that just get prepared, man. Put that hard hat on, and they just got to learn how to finish games and get that bond and play together and play for each other. I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of teams don't understand is when you have that chemistry and you have that bond and you can play together and you're playing for each other, man, it's hard to lose. Even though everybody's from a different place and you have different goals, and especially now with all this craziness and portals and NIL shit, it's still at the end of the day, man, you still have that common goal, to get the win. So if they can figure that out, I think towards towards the end, they're going to be a very hard team to play against.
Is it kind of cool to see? I mean, I know it's not like Indiana or Iowa or any big time like a blue blood college program, but is it cool to see? Even if you haven't paid attention to it, man, a lot of national pundits were high on this team. Is it cool to see at least your alma mater and then being a UNM basketball alumni get that recognition?
Oh, 100%. I mean, like I said, I'm from Indiana. I bleed the Hoosier State, but I always tell people that New Mexico this is my second home. First home now because I moved back. But I mean, I love to see you and them, just the Lobos doing big things, man. Like I said, I love the coaching staff, man. All those guys are great guys. And, I want to see them do good. I talk about it all the time. That 30-5 is a hard goal to reach, man. But I hope they get close. I hope they don't beat it, but I hope they get close to it and they can get to the tournament and those guys can experience all the things that we experienced when we were playing.
Ed says it all the time. Those seasons, it's like money; it doesn't grow on trees. That I look back, I'm like, man, they were 30. They were 30-5. His name, he's a former guard for the UNM men's basketball team. He played from 2007 to 2011. Man, you averaged, I've already mentioned it, but you averaged over 10 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, and you shot 45% from the field. That was impressive. And as you just mentioned, you were the floor general for that 30-5 team in 2009, 2010. His name is Dairese Gary. Dairese, from myself, Ryan, and I know Ed and Eric, and from all of us here at the Pit Press, we appreciate talking to you. I know it's been a long time coming, but we appreciate talking to you, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, sir, man. Anytime, man. If we could link it up, I'm always willing to be on here, man.
Maybe I don't know. Next time I'll definitely try to get some more Alford getting mad stories because, like I said, dude, Ferris has got the. I mean, I've said it, and you're one of my favorite Lobos to talk to, at least. But we've talked to Dontrell Moore. He's like 1B, but Ferris, and it's no disrespect to anybody that's played. I don't know. Ferris is the funniest guy to talk to. In my opinion.
I'm about to say he's funny in general, man. That's my dude. He definitely has some stories. That was he got fresh Alfred. Like he got the Alfred that was coming in and had to whip motherfuckers back into shape. Like he got, excuse my language, like he got that one. So he definitely got the bad end of it.
No, dude, I'm glad to hear. No, that made this until we're still recording. I'll hit on recording for that. That made the whole interview worth it in my book. So, but anyway, man, hey, happy New Year. His name's Dairese Gary. He's at ABC. You have to correct me. I'm not an AAU guy. It's still ABQ Prep or is it Albuquerque Prep School?
So the ABC Travel AAU is different from the ABC Prep. ABC Prep is an actual school where we play nationally.
Okay. I don't keep up to that. That's my own ignorance. But anyway, Dairese Gary, hey man, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Reese, take care, man.
Yep, you too.